Okay. We'll call to order the City of Monona Plan Commission meeting for Monday, December 14th. Roll call, please.
Chair Bussey.
Here.
Alder Holmquist. Mr. Dorschel.
Here.
Mr. Ganzer.
Here.
Mr. Kugel.
Here.
Mr. Stein.
Here.
Mr. Hamburg is excused.
Item number 3, approval of minutes for November 9th, 2015. Do we have a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Edits, comments, revisions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Appearances. I have one here, but this is for an item. Is there anybody here who wishes to appear for an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll close the appearance section, move to unfinished business. 5A, public hearing on request by Gordon Flush Company for approval of a zoning permit for building and site improvements, including a new entry facade and parking lot expansion at 2501 and 2551 Kilgust Road, represented by architect Mark Zing Design. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Fatty Hype with Zing Design. Mark cannot be here today, unfortunately, so on his behalf, if you would,
Sure.
if it's okay with you, Mike and I could talk over the project. I think you guys have seen the plans in the first go-around, I think a month and a half ago or so. And the intent of this project is an overview was to put on a front entry to the front of the building, and then as an addition to it. And then to the north of that would be a 22 stall parking lot so that they could make up for the lost ones that was there. So that's what the site plan that you're seeing is showing, along with the site improvements such as how to drain it and also landscape it, which we have on the board here for you. So I think I'm going to let Mike talk about the drainage if there's any questions in regards to that.
The intent is to replace the existing 10-stall parking lot. Basically came off of the existing. The main drainage comes right here along the building, and the previous parking lot sat out here. The intent to gain more stalls is just to rotate it 90 degrees, add a driveway out onto Kilgust. And we're adding a total of 12 stalls to get to 22 in the new parking lot after subtracting the 10 from the old parking lot. We're utilizing storm sewer to convey water under the pavements. We will no longer have water running across the pavement like we did previously. And then we're also utilizing grass swales wherever possible to help treat that water and remove as much suspended solids prior to releasing it. The major stormwater controls are at the plat level with the pond for the plat, but we will be doing some cleaning on site. Oil and grease is not required because we're under the 40 stall. So that's the quick synopsis on the site design itself.
Any updates as far as changes from the last presentation?
We have responded to most of Darren's comments, updated the plans accordingly, and now Darren did issue another letter last week that still has a few items that need to be addressed, which we will address prior to the permitting process.
Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to speak at the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing if you'd like to hang there, and we'll move on to the consideration of action on the request. Sonia?
This was last reviewed in a pre-hearing conference in September. Vierbecker reviewed the plans, and as Mike mentioned, there's a regional stormwater basin for the Southtown Industrial Plat that handles the runoff rate and sediment reduction for the entire plat. And that was detailed in the letter in the staff report. So approval is recommended with the 6 conditions, with most of those relating to the comments in the Vierbecker letter.
Thank you. Commission members? Comments? Is there?
If it drains, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move approval subject to the conditions recommended by staff making the findings of fact as recommended by staff.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, thank you. Moving on to 5C, public hearing for Royal Capital Group and JLA Architects on a proposal for a general development plan for lots 2, 3, and 4 of CSM number 8819 at 1208, 1210, 1220 East Broadway for residential and commercial development, including 150 residential units, 4,000 square feet of commercial, and a 90-room hotel. Welcome, gentlemen.
Once Rose gets set up, Kevin, president of Rural Capital Group, we have Terrell Walter with Rural Capital Group, project manager. We also have SR Moon from Fair Development, who's serving as co-developer with the master plan development. Today, what we wanted to do was kind of give a grasp of what we've done over the past few months since the last time we met. We decided to hit the refresh button a little bit, get some fresh eyes on this concept. We feel like we made a lot of progress. There's still some progress to be made, and we wanted some fresh eyes on it. So that included us having to bring in new design team that we thought we had a lot more experience in national planning. That can kind of hear some of the concerns and address those concerns at the same time. The planning commission was great. I think that our previous team was awesome, but they was better in other areas, and we kind of needed a team that had a lot of experience in this. JLA couldn't come today. He had a last minute emergency intent to, but this guy named Joe Lee, they're a very experienced architect group that has done a lot of master planning locally as well as in the Milwaukee area as well. They're a County-based group. So again, what we wanted to do was bring in. Well, given the technical challenges, I wanted to show you guys the slide.
Is it? Yeah. Can you do it on the overhead, Kevin?
I'll try to do this. It's extremely small.
Better than nothing.
Yeah. So this is some of the original planning. This is kind of like showing where we were and how far did we get. That first, the colorful demonstration was something that the previous. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
So this concept right here was some of the earliest drafts that the previous design team had put together. As you can see, it was a little bit disjointed, as evidenced by both the staff report, as well as you can see in the drawing. There was a lot of parking, but it was still three buildings, primarily two residential buildings and a third building slated for a hotel and/or apartment complex, with a smaller building being the light retail component. Our last meeting that we had before you guys presented this model. Again, a lot of progress. A lot of things were, hitting on some of those comments that we have in here in the staff report, but it still fell short in our eyes, and I think in some of the reporting, it kind of showed that we needed to take a few more strides forward. In this concept, what was happening? This So this is the most recent model that you guys see. This is the most updated model that's out available now. As you can see, our concept evolved from eliminating what was in the B square concept, where we had the smaller business opportunities, smaller, small businesses. It was an incubator office space. It was a commercial kitchen. Again, trying to satisfy a retail concept inside of a market that was somewhat challenged. But what we did in this case, we decided to eliminate that component because some concerns with the planning condition overall feasibility, and want to take a shot at not having it, just eliminate and see how the design will come out. So they progressed. Some of the challenges that come along with that most recent site plan was the question of, there's two long buildings. In addition, it seems to be engulfed in a lot of parking. In addition, agree to me the housing components seem to be somewhat separated with not a lot of alignment. As you can see, I'm trying to move in on this one. Not the best, but as you can see, some of our major improvements include green space, and how we appropriately utilize the green space across the campus. We started that with what we call our first impression, coming off on the main road Broadway and driving past the smaller retail component of the gas station. We want to line that with trees. Going to your east, you can see that the gas station is somewhat separated from the overall residential portion of the campus by a sea of trees as well to kind of add some kind of validity to the residential and pedestrian-friendly component. As you further get into the site, what we're calling our boulevard, and you can see that the entryway is getting further as you go south, highlighted with green space and trees. At the base of those, on the first floor of those units, you'll also see, it's kind of hard to see here, but we kind of, at the meeting with the group, Burbecker and Sonia, we had like a 2-hour meeting after the last time we met here. And we just kind of started throwing around concepts and coming up with ideas. And one of the ideas that came about was how much of a challenge would it be to incorporate first floor walk-ups, something like brownstones. That was something that was things that was brought in our last meeting as well with you guys. We found a way to kind of incorporate into the design, and we're kind of pleased with that. So it's not very well demonstrated on the site plan, but with this picture, but you'll see that we're building B and A, both buildings are lined on the first floor of walk-up townhomes. Then you'll see, as you go to the east of the site, this is actually a walk-up as well, and you'll see that the site is much more conducive for pedestrian-friendly access. Again, not very visible on this screen, but you'll see that curb cuts and sidewalks are laced throughout the site. This is our common area. The common area will encompass a fitness center. It will serve as the primary office for the management. It will have a conference room center and an additional recreation space, such as a game room and/or, just general meeting space for family gatherings. We also improved in our stormwater management. We'll delay that for further discussion, but we improved the overall distribution of the stormwater management. Before we had one retention pond serving the site, but now we have multiple in a way to kind of better distribute that aims, probably more at a much more feasible site for the long term. I think I'm going to pass it to Terrell to kind of talk about some of the illustrations and inspiration photos. A little tough to see, but
we'll work with this. Hopefully we can get someone in so we can actually show you all these inspiration photos. So as Kevin mentioned, we did just go back and hit the reset button, say, hey, let's take some time to look at this with fresh eyes, and objectively look at the notes that we got from our previous plan commission meetings as well, and our meetings with Vera Bicker as well as Sonia. So this development here, so Kevin and I took some time just driving around the community, different developments that we know about throughout the state of Wisconsin. And this one we came across was the Woodlands in Menominee Falls, so right outside of Milwaukee. It's kind of hard to tell, but this building here is 3 stories in terms of height. But what's unique about this building is along the street is actually lined with the brownstone field, the walk-ups. So it has that primary entrance on the first level, but then in addition to that, apartments above. And this development, what you can't see in the illustration itself, is that it's actually situated amongst a commercial corridor for the city of Menominee Falls. Nearby is the expressway. You have gas stations, banking, grocery, big commercial, office tenants, that type of thing. And it's greater than 140 units built here. And what the city was very pleased about with this development was how they actually made this portion of the site feel residential. And they were able to do that through the connectivity with bringing the buildings closer to the street, having those curb cuts as well as the sidewalk. And the architect for this development is actually JLA, who is the current architect for the Broadway Square development. This is, pretty sure many of you may be familiar with this development. This is far east side of Madison, the Grandview Commons area. So we went through this site as well, looked at all the great things that they have going on over there with their new urbanism site. Walkability and pedestrian friendly was like their goal at that site. So we looked at these walk-ups and said, hey, that would be great. Of course, adding residential above, not only having the townhouse units, but using that as an inspiration and not aligning the street to give it that true residential feel. And here's another example. We looked at this and we were interested in, we would always see this building kind of popping up from the expressway. So this is when we're coming in from Milwaukee, take the exit towards Janesville, coming into the Beltline. We always see this development to our left. We've seen it being built up. Kevin and I, this is the Grandview Common site as well, what they're doing over in that area. So we went over to see, hey, this building feels close to the expressway, the highway itself. So let's see how it feels, how it looks, the noise. So this picture is actually from Kevin's cell phone. He's standing at the top of the natural barrier that they have there at the site, and just kind of took in the area, took in the sounds of the site, and noticed that how close it was, and kind of compared it to the Broadway Square site and how we kept the residential portion closer to Broadway versus next to the Beltline. We do have those natural buffers, pretty much like this site has as well. And of course, how do I zoom out?
Turn that knob on the end. Yeah, one way or the other.
Cool. So of course, a big topic that we've discussed with this site is transportation. Really wanting to cater to the residents. We love the location of the site because it is next to the Beltline and it gives residents that easy access on and off. But we do want to think about residents that may not own a car because they choose not to or can't afford one, whatever the case may be. So we've looked into many different transportation options. As we spoke before, Monona Transit, the system that you all have here, which we think is great, offers residents an option. So we do plan on having a stop located at the site to bus any school-aged children that will actually live at the site. In addition to that, have that designated stop for Monona Transit with Monona Express as well as Monona to stop at the site for pickups. We've also had progressive conversations with B-Cycle. I'm pretty sure you all are familiar with it in the Madison area. They've been, through conversations that we've had, they've been very interested in expanding to the Monona area just to kind of connect around Lake Monona. So we've had progressive conversations. They're really excited about coming to our site, adding a station that won't only be for our residents, but for the city of Monona residents. Just to kind of connect the area, give our residents that added an additional option. And we'll also have bicycle racks as well. But B-Cycle will serve at a point in the site where we'll actually have a station located. We had up until the end of August progressive conversations with Community Car, which if y'all aren't familiar with it, it's a Madison-based car sharing program, founded and built up here, 1,300 members locally. And they recently actually sold to Zipcar. We were excited about the conversations that we had with Community Car because they already have a model in place where they actually located a few cars at a development on the far west side of Madison. So we were having those progressive conversations, and then in September they decided to sell to Zipcar, who actually began to encroach on their market share. So we have not to date had any conversations with Zipcar, but we do look forward to doing so. We feel it will be an added amenity to the site and benefit our residents positively.
Yeah, what we wanted to do today was, and give you guys general feedback, general understanding of some of the primary progressive items that we've kind of targeted, mainly dealing with the site plan, site plan to make it much more of a better balance between the commercial and retail, commercial and residential components that we have been talking about. Another major component that we kind of focused our attention on was the feasibility of the hotel that we had brought in conversation before. So with that, again, we want to give you guys a very light introduction to the change that's going on. So we did include things like the stormwater management, green space calculation, the overall full submit that you guys are used to seeing from us. What we wanted to do was, again, have enough time on the calendar for us to kind of just talk specifically about these updates and these changes. And then, pending these conversations, how these discussions go today, we can move forward with the mid-January submittal to you all in regards to a full package. So what we did since the last time we met was, based on conversation that the feedback we was getting, that the hotel would be a critical component, that if it was feasible, that it'd be a game changer for some of you all. And what we did was we solicited a market study provider, and we actually worked with two different groups, one local and one guy that was works another part of the study. And from there, they had shown strong interest. From that, we also found out that the city of Madison and the city of Monona had already had a market study on file as well, which we were able to obtain that report with the city. It's called the STR report, which basically highlights the overall vacancy and nightly rates for nearby hotels. The Madison area and the Monona area does very, very well with these in regards to these metrics. And the further study done by the market study providers actually said that, this is a great opportunity. The site is outstanding. You guys are on the right track. Not only are you guys on the right track as market study providers, but we have a network of developers that want to speak with you, Mr. Newell. And so from there, we began to engage in discussions with different groups that are primarily hotel developers. We are good at residential and we're good at mixed use, but hotel is not something that is in our wheelhouse. So we began those discussions. We began to vet these different groups. And some of the things that rose to the top that was significant for us was what groups are active right now? How's your current portfolio looking? Have you ever worked in the Dane County market or Wisconsin market? So we get a lot of interest outside of the state as well. And from that, SR Mills, who is actually a former still partner, we actually have done some bids together in Kenosha. We're going to a portfolio of about 84 units together in the Kenosha market. He had heard about it, so I positioned before him. And given the comfort level that he brought to me in the vetting process, outside of being friends and development partners and all that good stuff, I told him that he needs to really show me that he would be the guy that can march this thing forward, because I have to convince the planning commission. So Bear, who's been in business since 1924, and SR was going to Bear Development as the president, but they have a lot of current history as it relates to hotels. They'll go into their most recent developments. They'll go into the overall strategies that utilize to enter to market and all that good stuff. And he's our guy that we decided to co-develop with after the vetting process with the other groups. And so I'll let him speak more about their experience in the market.
Perfect. Timing is good. Pretty pictures are always.
That's how you treat the newcomers. Give this guy the technology.
You guys work out. Go ahead and get started. So, as Kevin mentioned, SR Mills with called Bear Real Estate Group. We're based out of Kenosha, Wisconsin. We've been in business since 1924. It is a family operation. My family has been involved since the early 70s. There's four major parts of our business. Original company that was started back in the 20s was our brokerage side. So we have Bear Realty's, our residential brokerage offices, based out of Kenosha, Paddock Lake, and Burlington. In addition to, and that's become a smaller component of what we do over the last 20 to 30 years. Bear Property Management is our property management firm. We're currently, we own and manage assets in 16 states. We're expanding in certain areas and trying to increase that portfolio. It's primarily multifamily and office and retail. Over the last 10 years, we've been more involved on the hospitality side, which I'll speak to here in a moment. The third company that's under that same umbrella is Construction Management Associates. CMA is the acronym. It's our general contracting firm, again, based out of Kenosha. About 95% of the work that CMA does is primarily from an affiliated sister company. So back through Bear Development, we're having a great year. We're active in about 4 states on the construction side as well. But the main parent organization that kind of keeps the wheels turning and continues to put product and move it forward is Bear Development. So Bear Development is our development side. We're involved in 3 major areas. The first being commercial. So we do build-to-suits for universities. Just finished a VA clinic down in McHenry, Illinois, surgery clinic. So we'll do various office and retail type development. In addition to that, the multifamily side is a very big component of what we do. As Kevin mentioned, we partnered on an 84-unit rehab in Kenosha. We're active in the state and in other states on the multifamily development, both on the affordable side and the market rate. One of the interesting points with JLA, Joe Lee Associates, Joe's actually the architect on a 280-unit project that we're hopefully breaking ground on in a week if the weather stays. They're highly respected and very confident with their skill sets. But the other side of that is the hospitality. So there's a couple of examples which Terrell can maybe go to here. A little bit on our hospitality background. So our DNA has changed over the years. We've become more and more involved on the hospitality side. Recently, we just completed. You have the Hampton Inn. We just completed in Kenosha on here. We just completed a Hampton Inn & Suites, which is a limited service hotel in Kenosha. Brought that online about 6 weeks ago. Timing, that's actually it right there. Timing is good in the Kenosha market. The metrics all have worked pretty well. In addition to the Hampton, we brought a Candlewood Suites, which is an extended stay product through IHG Intercontinental Hotel Group. We own that now for about 5 years, and it's very complementary to have both the Hilton and Intercontinental brands work in conjunction in the same market. The previous picture that was up there, that one right there, is a Homewood Suites that is in downtown Milwaukee, so we will be breaking ground on that in February. It is a historic site, former Brett Favre Steakhouse. Anybody familiar with that? Now it's the Joey Bono's restaurant. Had a terrible fire about 25 years ago, so its upper floors is sat vacant. So we proceeded, and Hilton granted us the Homewood Suites flag, which is the upper end extended stay of that Hilton brand. So a little bit about us, what we do, and how we're situated. To bring it back to the subject site, anytime we go into a development, whether it's the commercial side, the multifamily side, the hospitality, we typically try and clear out the noise and reduce it down to 3 major components. One is there a market? And that gets validated different ways based on the different product type. In the hospitality side, as Kevin mentioned, it goes back to the market study, and we rely on the market study. The market study providers typically go back and use that STAR report. That acronym stands for Smith Travel Report. So most hospitality projects feed their data back there, and that allows us to make good decisions with what's the occupancy and what's the average daily rate, the ADR. And those are the 2 major driving factors in a lot of the decisions that get made in the hospitality side. So that info gets synthesized by a market study provider. They use other demographics specific to the site, specific to what's coming online, to ensure that the trends are continuing upward. We rely very heavily on our market study providers. As Kevin mentioned, there's 2 independent providers that worked on the subject site, as well as a friend of Paytech from Paytech Hospitality we have a long-standing relationship with, so we leaned on her on this project as well. In addition to that, we do both what they call flagged and non-flagged hotels. So currently within our portfolio, we have Hilton, both the Hampton Inn & Suites, the Homewood Suites, IHG product, and non-flagged. So we have a hotel in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, that's a non-flagged asset, and we're moving forward on a new hotel under a Kimpton flag there as we speak. So we recently just executed our Kimpton document. So we have a good working relationship with all of the different major hotel flags and try and understand which one's going to fit best on the site. And oftentimes it's not only dictated by what would work best on the site, but also what's in the area. Madison has some great hospitality groups that are here. And with that, there's a lot of representation in the brand. So it's trying to find a brand that will fit and a brand that will continue to do well with the support of the flag. I have here a little information on a hotel brand that it's back through Hilton, so it has the Hilton reservation system. On the hospitality side, you kind of have the two big 800-pound gorillas. One is Marriott and one is Hilton. And they're always competing for market share back and forth and trying to find new flags, new products that work. We think the site works very well as a limited service hotel. And there's a variety of choices within that limited service product. One of them is a new line that Hilton is just coming out with today. We like it for a couple of reasons. One, we think it plays to a little bit more of a millennial crowd. It has some different things that, while we're a big fan of Hampton and they do a wonderful job in the marketplace, there's some updates to the Hampton, and instead of refining that Hampton product because of that brand loyalty, they've come up with a new product. It's called Project Canvas. You can tell from the pastel colors and smiling people on the front. It is very geared up towards the millennial generation. It's great community space, common area space, but smaller, but still achieves that limited service goal. We think it can do well. Our Hilton rep, who has toured the site, as part of that vetting process, we want to make sure there's buy-in on all sides. Feel good that this product or something very much like it could do well in this location. So as mentioned, there's three parts to that process. The one is vetting out the market. We feel pretty good that the market can work and this site will work. The second is the economics. It has to make economic sense at the end of the day. And we try and do litmus checks throughout the process early and often. And if there's red flags, we raise them and want to make sure everybody's at the table and knows why. So we have a financial model on the site right now, continuing to fill information into it so we can ascertain whether the stormwater, whether all of the site characteristics, how that's going to play back into the model. And the third is it really needs to be wanted in the community. We never want to go uphill. We want to be complementary to what's going on around us. We do a pretty good job about listening and trying to come to a lot of meetings, do a lot of open houses, over-communicate on the front end so we can anticipate any changes and really get that good feedback so we can get buy-in all around. So those are the three major pieces that we look for when proceeding with any kind of development project. As mentioned, Hilton is one of those other 800-pound gorillas. It's a firm that we're actively developing with in Wisconsin. We feel pretty good about them. They like the site as well. There's a lot more that has to be done, but we think it has good bones and will provide an opportunity for us to be successful. So here today to just give a little bit about us and why Kevin decided that he wanted to partner with Bear and what we think we can bring to the table. Again, we're not too far away. We're just on the road and very good partners in that respect. So here to answer any questions you have on the hospitality side or anything else that can be helpful with. And I do have a lot of marketing material. I don't know if you can Hilton kills a lot of trees with their products.
One other thing that he's probably mentioned in combination with the brand and SR seeking the new Hilton brand that I believe they brought a few months back. But it kind of goes back to the campus and how the campus all relates to one another. So on the residential component, before we had a decent mix of large units. I call those large units two-bedroom plus den or three-bedroom units, along with the majority of two bedrooms and a small mix of ones. What we've done here, after again doing that refresh button and bringing in teammates that can better help us illustrate again a vision, is we relooked at our capital stack. One of the challenges was we had one market rate building and one affordable building. We said, you know what, let's meet with our financial investors and financing companies and so forth and see what we can do. What we did was we essentially, not officially yet, because it's a carrot that we will have to get back at the appropriate time, but we'll be giving back our 9% credit, which is essentially credit that was given to us in 2014 that relates to the specific site and that relates to a certain unit mix or unit type that's inclusive of larger units. And then what we did next was we say, Now we can look at this from a holistic standpoint, and what's the chances that we can get both residential buildings under one common capital stack? Being under one common capital stack allows us to mix the market rate units amongst in the same combination with the affordable units, and we can do that amongst both buildings in a very, very efficient way. We're still utilizing affordable tax credits, but we're doing what they call the 4% tax credits. The 4% tax credits allows us to do a very, very, it's a very much more flexible program. And so what we've done now is, we brought in smaller units that are much more aligned with 1 and 2 bedroom units, which are doing exceptionally well in the market as well. And so the site now may not be as accommodating to the large families, but it's still a place for young families with 1 child to live and grow in this place in a very, very effective way. But again, that's kind of somewhat responding to what are some of the comments and so forth that we received from the Planning Commission about children and safety and so forth. But again, going back to that core market of 1s and 2s, which does exceptionally well in the market under one capital stack, where there's a combination again of market rate and affordable units, is great. In addition, what it does is our affordable units are still affordable under the program, but they carry a much more higher threshold now, I guess we would say. And so the threshold before may have what we call, without getting too complicated, they had units that were called 30% CMI units, 40%, 50%, 60%. CMI meaning county median income. So an individual before, the site had a mix of 30% and 50% CMI. So individuals that can make, call it $25,000, $30,000. They was kind of maxed out there for a single person per se. Some of the units, and other units they were maxed out at 40,000. What we have now is, for 60%, we have all 60% affordable units in combination with the market rate units, which allows for us to get a larger base of the market. And so at a 60% CMI level, a person can make upwards of mid-40s and still live in this development and qualify and things of that nature. So it's a little bit more, much more of a flexible programming overall with our new capital stack, and that's again in combination with how the whole campus we are seeking to have it flow.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in the public hearing? If not, gentlemen, if you'd like to stay there, we'll move on to the pre-hearing conference on the request. Sonia?
So this is the 5th pre-hearing conference on this proposal. The first one was back in July 2014, and the most recent one being held on July 13th of this year. So the application is still following the Planned Community Development Process, or PCD, which is implemented through the 2 steps: General Development Plan, GDP, and then subsequent precise implementation plans for each individual site. So this, again, is the 5th pre-hearing conference on the General Development Plan, and it's conceptual at this point, with all of the additional information that needs to be submitted outlined in the staff report and in previous Bierbicker review letters. The applicants are requesting feedback specifically on the site design and if the compatibility with residential land use has been improved, with some of the land use changing slightly, including removal of the Entrepreneur Center and the mix of units that Kevin was describing. So areas that can be discussed are outlined in the staff report, including site design, architectural themes, parking levels, access and circulation, level of green space, etc.
Thank you. Commission members. If you don't mind me picking on you, I think I'll go ahead, Dale.
You certainly did do a restart, and I think there's been a tremendous amount of improvements to the site. Regarding the hotel, so you're saying that you're in on this project. Is that correct?
Correct. We, again, talking about the spot checks as we go, we have no reason not to be in right now. We continue to vet that out and have a lot of communication. But we are in and look forward to taking it to the next steps. For their due diligence.
Yeah, I think it's important to state that, having the appropriate zoning and tiling in place is a pure indication that if either of us are in, we have site control and things of that nature, but we really can't do anything on a residential, hotel, or retail component until we receive the necessary support from the city.
And regarding the hotel, is this, to me in my travels, regional and national travels, it seems very unique. I won't say odd, but unique that you would pass through a residential, an apartment community to get to the front door of a hotel. Could you speak to that just a bit? And its uniqueness?
That's a great point, and that's a challenge. We think the visibility from the highway is very important. One of the things on the Hampton site, similar challenge. We were a ways off of the site. We had some topography, things going in our favor, where we, about a quarter of a mile, we were able to raise the hotel up, get that visibility from the highway, have the appropriate signage, the directionals to get everybody back to the site. I wouldn't consider it an A site. It was a very good B site, but we were able to do some things to make it work. This has similar challenges, and we have to absolutely vet out from a signage standpoint how we're going to get people in off of the street, and then how we're going to bring them back to the site. One of the things that we want to make sure that it works from a safety standpoint, residential access points. We want to have a great boulevard as we come in, but we want to make sure that from a hospitality standpoint, we can ease in and ease out and not a lot of congestion going through. So that's something that we need to spend some more time with Kevin and how exactly that would fit.
So it is unique. I mean, it's not something that you see very often. I've never seen it.
It is, one of the things, as long as the thoroughfare is clear and it's open, there's often times when we think of hospitality sites, specifically limited service, whether you're behind or set back from the main arterial and you're going through some kind of commercial area, whether it's behind retail outlots, it's not a challenge that can't be overcome. The only difference here is instead of going past typical commercial, we're going past residential. As long as we can get through it from a safety standpoint, ensure that traffic works, I think it's fine. So another good example, we have the hotel in Kenosha, Candlewood Suites. We have behind the university and behind the surgery clinic. And the way it sits back, we have some shared parking lots in between. So while there are commercial outlots in front instead of residential, we still have to go through that flow of traffic, and it's a bit of it's a well-lit maze, but it's a bit of a maze to get back to it. So I think it's not a challenge that can't be overcome, but it is something we have to be cognizant of, given the typical would be different asset classes between multifamily and commercial.
Kevin, these townhome entrances, I'm not completely clear on whether in fact you're talking townhomes or not, or are these just architecturally suggest that, but these entryways are going into hallways?
No, so there's one central, it's called in the middle of the building, and that will go into the hallway. But the ground floor units that's being described or being depicted in the picture, the site plan, actually do walk up to primary entrances. So those will be the primary entry for that residence. If that makes sense.
So there's a center hallway for those that are on the back side of the building, so to speak.
So one to two of those walk-ups will actually be, to the upper level apartments, but then the remaining walk-ups are, again, true walk-ups to the primary entry for that residence. So it's a design element that JLA has duplicated in several different markets that makes some sense. And it's also in combination with what we're probably seeing over here. Was it Grandview Commons? There's Grandview Commons, I don't think I disagree with that as well, or not. Just on the So they have the same concept. And it's not a new concept. again, bring that, to improve the residential ground floor level of the developments while still being able to do apartments in a lot of residential areas.
Give them a little more of an urban look.
Yeah.
That's probably how Grandview is using it.
Yeah.
That is it right now for the moment. Anybody else has anything to bring up?
Thanks. Griff, can I pick on you?
Just to follow up on the question of going through the residential area to get to the hotel, have you given any thought to shifting the hotel to one of the other buildings so that the hotel would be closer to Broadway and the residential area would be toward the back of the premises?
Good question. From our standpoint, that highway visibility is really key, and that's what makes this site work. And without that, I don't think it would fit for a hospitality site. So that in shifting that and losing that visibility, we see that as a problem. Acknowledging that we need to make sure we've got a clear shot and a great corridor back to the site from Broadway for the access stuff.
How tall would these respective buildings be?
Hospitality side, typically it's a wood frame stick structure. Stick-built structures are 4 stories.
4-story for residential as well.
I like the more green space that you provided, the more order that it seems to suggest.
Ryan?
And there's more schematics and elevations that are coming, but we want to make sure that we stop ourselves in our tracks in so many words. And, we wanted to do this on the 23rd of last month because we didn't have quorum. But we want to get before you guys as early as we can to kind of get initial feedback so that we can continue to improve, continue to finalize our game plan for the overall site and its different uses.
So I think the primary question that we've come up with before is, are we comfortable with residential given the site in comparison to the other properties adjacent to this property and how it connects to the larger piece? And I still have a concern with the heavy residential based on that bigger piece. That aside, I think this design is a much improved design from what was previously here. If I look at that same design and thought of those as office buildings, this is a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm still struck with it's not like this residential is going to be connected with the next residential one next to it and then follow the suit. We have commercial space that's built out on one side of it and across the street that's not going to change. So it is a postage stamp and not going to grow. And so that's the biggest concern. However, some of the other pieces that you addressed about the mix of the unit size, I think is going in the right direction if that first question was tackled. The layout is a much improved layout for pedestrians, just ease of access around, as well as just the friendliness of it with the entryways, I think is a wonderful concept. The relation to some of these other properties that you pointed out, like Grandview Commons, that's not a postage stamp. That was fields, right? I mean, this isn't just one little strip of road over there. It goes on for miles of roads. So I think borrowing from those designs is a wonderful concept. I think we're just limited in this property.
Yeah, I think the correlation that we want to strike between the two properties, Grandview and this site, again, was the highway visibility that both sites, have. And I know that this site being situated right off of the highway was brought up in conversation as something that wasn't pleasurable. Again, that was something that, there's a trend that you drive with Highway 12, the Bell Line, you'll see a lot of different residential trucks sided up in think that a good concentration of 150 units with a great amount of residential units for a semi-neighborhood, I guess, we're developing. So it kind of goes back to that question is, you know, is it isolated? I think it's tough to get 150 people into one area and call it isolation. So that's what our thought process was. With the amount of units, the capacity of the site, and figuring out a way again to address some of the site needs. Trademarks, very long, very deep, and figuring out what the best, the highest and best use for the site. Retail in that center component. As a retail developer, I guess you would, let you speak on that, but was an excessive challenge. Just the feasibility of trying to get that to mesh well with the demand of the retailer, the traditional retailer.
Yeah, I'm happy to our experience talk a little bit about some of the unique sites that we've worked with. Well, one of the greatest attributes and trends that we've seen in multifamily development is freeway access. It's having instant access to the major materials. And as we look at successful sites within our portfolio, they're the ones that are positioned very, where it's an easy on, easy off from a major arterial, state highway, or an interstate system. So from a, not speaking about it from a neighborhood plan and from your perspective, but from a marketability standpoint, I think this works really well. Whether or not it's where you folks want to see it as far as the connectivity, but I do think it would do well in the marketplace. And in thinking about how would retail perform there, retailers are fickle, and it's they need rooftops. And after the recession, we're not seeing too many retailers get too far out in front of the rooftops anymore. Everybody took a step back on that process. So, well, I think maybe someday, I think it's probably a stretch given the characteristics of this site. But.
That's it.
Mr. Stein?
Speaking to the site plan, I think it's a great improvement of flow and connectivity and just how you treat it. I like the stoop idea, and I think with the hotel there having that step up that separates the traffic from headlights and things, I think that's all great. I think as far as the hotel is concerned, I think you got the right group to work with. I'm impressed with everything that I've heard. I think it's a great spot for the hotel. Visibility is great. My concerns are the same, though, as Mr. Homburg's with the isolation of the residential group from the rest of the community, the Monona community. I know it has some connection to some of the assets of the community, like a park, some retail, shopping, medical. There's going to be an interchange that's going to be moving closer, I think, on some of the housing developments at Grandview. There was a large berm separating the interstate from the residential, and a berm is going to kill noise a lot more than vegetated screening will. And that's an option you don't have here. But having the hotel, that's the right spot for it. That's a bit of a buffer. The screening you provided for the gas station, the overall site layout is a really good start, I think. But my major concern is that is this the best use for this site with this much residential in that area? And I don't personally think that it is. I think that this was our future land use plan is slated for commercial. The vast majority of this whole corridor is commercial. And looking at our land use plans, in our housing element of our comprehensive plan, we're trying to achieve a balance between renter and owner, and we're kind of at that threshold already. So those are my major concerns with it. But speaking to the site plan, I think you've done a lot of good work to make it improved. I like mixing the CMI units or affordable units into both buildings, if I understood that correctly. I think that's a great improvement if we were to go forward as a residential development.
That's all I got right now.
Thanks. Mr. Google.
Well, I have the same concerns about the land use, using this area for residential. I mean, I know there's a lot of improvements that you've made to the site plan, but I'm not convinced that putting this many residential units in an isolated area, when I look at the aerial map and all I see is commercial development, really as far as the map shows around it, I just think you're going to be isolating people out there with really no connection to the Monona community. It maybe for a larger city, 222 bedrooms is not a big development, but for the city of Monona, if you put 400 people out there, that's a 5% of the entire population of Monona. I mean, it's significant. It's significant. And we have some areas in Monona where we have apartment complex units that are in really need of either upgrade or going away. I mean, we have some challenged areas. If these units were being put in other places in Monona, I think I'd be one of your biggest backers. But I just think you're isolating people out here. This was always meant to be a commercial corridor. It's been a while since anybody's looked at it for development. That's unfortunate, but I'm just not personally ready to approve a residential or a multifamily unit on this site.
Anything else, Mr. Cooper? I think the hotel, as far as highest and best use, I mean, for the hotel to have the advantage of the view from 12 and 18 is awesome. Just looking at this map, unlike Grandview Commons, I mean, you got 51 and 12 and 18 intersection right there. And to me, that's screaming, like Alder Holmquist said, if this were an office or some type of commercial use in here, it'd be a slam dunk. The retail along the Broadway is great. They take advantage of the visibility, but for the concerns that some of the other folks have. But I think the hotel is a great use. What was the group that we had, Kevin? Entrepreneurial, B Square, the entrepreneurship co-working center. I mean, it's gone even more residential with the elimination of that, which gives me concern. You've made good improvements on the site. I mean, if it were mixed use, there was a heavy component of commercial and on first floor, and some residential above it. But again, going back to the other comments, I don't want to be isolating residents out there. I guess the last thing is the parking. Before you had parking on first floor, how are you? Is it underground now, or do they have to walk up above the? So you got to walk above the first floor parking to get into the. Yeah. Okay. Where some of those pictures you showed us, they had sort of a lower level living area that people could go down to. Correct. Okay. Any other comments for the applicant?
Just had a quick question. With the pedestrian path going out the southwest end of the site, is there a possibility for that connection there, or how?
Yeah, that's the idea, is to build it out on our side and then continue with community discussions to further develop the bike path, so allow us to be prepared when that step comes. But again, it comes down to the fundamentals of how far do we need to go working with you guys. Again, we think that, as developers, that this site lends itself very well to the mixes shown here. And we've studied heavily the plans and so forth with the city. There's a housing plan, redevelopment plan, and consistent theme across that, all those plans is, again, housing is allowable use here. I think the debate is not if housing is allowed or desired under those plans. I think it's much more, what is the mix? Is it, what does you have to also adapt to what the market is from our standpoint as developers. So that's what we tried to do, and mix, vet out every possible angle on the commercial side sounds of it, it seems like that's still somewhat of a hot topic for discussion.
Anything else for the applicants? If not, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we're going to, if you don't mind, we're going to, because we've got some other guests here tonight, we'll come back to 5E, which is review of the comprehensive plan maps. And so we'll skip over that, move to 6A, which is public hearing on a request by Mary Lou Reinwand, Rosy Cheeks and Company for approval of a zoning permit for a change in use for a salon and retail clothing store at 6045 Monona Drive. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Mary Lou Reinwand. I own a store called Rosy Cheeks and Company. We actually started our store about 25 years ago on the other end of Monona Drive, and we were there for several years, and then we couldn't pull the west siders east, so then we had a west and an east, and then we closed the east and moved everything west because 2 stores was too many things for one person, and so now we want to come east. We need bigger space, and so I live in Cottage Grove. We're totally Monona families. Our daughters teach at the high school, and you know we want to get back in this community. And I don't want to drive that Beltline anymore. I'm just so tired. So, anyways, one of our daughters is a managing hairstylist, and she's looking into. Well, she's coming along with several gals that have a 10-mile non-compete from a salon she works at, so that's the combination between the Rosy Cheeks store, and then part of the building would also be 5 salon rentals. So we've got an accepted offer on the building. You have it's right now GT Mobility or whatever down on Monona Drive. So we have an accepted offer, so we just need to see if we can get the plan to approve us to do what we want to do. We won't be doing a lot structurally in the building because there are 5 offices in that that will be perfect for the 5 salon suites. We'll be putting in just a shampoo area where one of the bathrooms is. And then the Rosy Cheeks store will be twice as big as it is now. And we do dance, gymnastics, skating, ballroom, which is huge. And we just, I was really skeptical about this because, you know, West doesn't like to come East, but we've grown so much that everybody I talk to are like, nope, we'll be there because we can't find what we want anywhere else. So, you know, I'm getting it really good. We've got a mailing list started, so need to find out whether we can do what we need to do and buy the building.
Thank you.
Questions?
Well, we also have Ken Kosick. Okay, it says here, would like to speak for informational purposes, but he is here to answer questions. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Move on to 6B, pre-hearing conference on the request. Sonia?
This is on the agenda for a zoning permit for a change in use. Some items to be discussed include parking availability. So there are 17 stalls on the site, and based on the square footage of the building in the code, 21 stalls would be required. But then also considering how many stylists and customers would be using the booths at once, there would be a maximum of 10 individuals for those salon booths, plus about 5 individuals using the retail space at once. So in the staff report, I've written that the parking seems appropriate. The applicant describes some future exterior improvements, but those are not part of the proposal right now. If there are substantial exterior alterations in the future, that's also something that can trigger zoning permit reviews, so that might come back. And then we did also provide the applicant with the facade improvement grant materials, which could be a benefit for the property if those exterior improvements are made in the future.
Thank you. Commission members, comments?
Mary Lou, where'd you go? I'm like, is this meeting over? Come on up. I can't see you. As long as you've been sitting there, I wouldn't think you'd be so eager to get back to the seat.
I thought you were moving on to something else. I mean,
No.
I'm sorry.
Where are you located on the west side?
We are at Westgate, and that's one of our other issues is Westgate Mall is now owned by Hy-Vee, and we haven't had a lease for 5 years, so we're just month to month. And, we could get a notice saying we're out in 3 months, and I'm kind of want to get ahead of that. So,
Well, I mean, I think the use sounds fabulous. I agree with staff. I don't think the parking's an issue. What would be your intentions with the exterior? I mean, could you
well,
clear that up a little bit?
I mean, I can't see us doing big things with the exterior, but right now there's a very beat-up 2-car garage door in the front for them to get their cars in, and we want to somewhat keep something, a hidden garage door, but not like that. So, make the front look more business, We haven't gotten there. I got to work with. We got to buy the building
The
first.
overhead on the front would go. Can I ask that? I mean, it looks like an auto service place,
Right.
and so I'm having
I
a
would
hard
say,
time visualizing.
there's a lot of really nice garage doors that almost look like carriage doors, and it would be definitely a 1-car. But you gotta get your snow removal equipment. I don't know. We're not quite there yet. We got to buy the building first, so something we'll get. We'll update.
As far as use, are there concerns about the use or parking, knowing that the design is coming before us again? School?
I think it's really, really good use. I think GT Mobility, weren't they here only a couple of years ago when they bought the place?
They don't own the place.
Oh, they don't own the place. Well, I think this would be a nice use for it.
Well, and for
Cottage
us,
Grove,
we
a local
need
resident,
to-
I think it's great.
Pulling from the west side, we need to stay as close to the Beltline as we can. So hopefully.
And we've been looking for retail type businesses on Monona Drive. This is nice. I think this is great. If it works out for you, I hope your business is great.
As long as parking's adequate, I would agree.
Okay, cool.
Any other comments?
I don't see any problem with the use. I think it's consistent with other uses along the drive. And I agree with the comments on parking. I think it would be adequate given the proposed use.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Probably see you again in the near future. We'll move on to 6C, which is public hearing on request by Modern Tresta Swad Indian Restaurant for approval of zoning permit for an expansion of use to expand the existing restaurant at 6007A Monona Drive into the adjacent space at 6007B Monona Drive and added seating at 8 additional tables. Good evening. Welcome. Good to see you again.
I just may say a word first. I'm Dwayne Hendrickson, the owner of the property.
You bet.
Good evening, gentlemen.
After 2 years, I'm here again. So Swad Restaurant doing great, and we need to little more space because the only thing is that we are, filling. So we need more space because some people, group people like a business people and big family people, that kind of people need a separate privacy room. And that is the reason we like to expand. I just request to him have a next door in only 1,000 square foot and backside. So we just got the wall, 44 inches big wall because people can in and out. Normally the space where we're going to rent that gonna be open only for the dinner or lunch time. So if the reason some people really want to have a party, like a meeting, privacy, that is the reason I need to expand the room. So
If I may interject, the space next door is about 2,000 square feet,
and he's going to expand into 1,000, just half of that space.
And then
And the other thing that I don't think you mentioned, he's had a big demand in the past for group meetings or parties, and he does not have the facility for that. So this space would be used again for that. It's not the kind of space that would be used necessarily every day. It would be used a little bit for overflow, but, and of course, parties and so forth would be on weekends. But that's what he really needs, and he's losing that business right now. And as he said, he's been open approximately 2 years, and he's been extremely successful, in my opinion, because I do own another Indian restaurant on the west side. It's probably one of the most successful Indian restaurants in the city of Madison area, including right now, which has to do with Alex, the space, the way his kitchen is, and his staff. I mean, there are three things that are critical in a restaurant: location, good food, and staff, and attitude. And because I've eaten at several other Indian restaurants, his staff is A+, where I rate all the others C-. And I even including the other one on the west side. So I'm being perfect.
I would like to show you something here.
Will, are you back there? We do the document camera, please.
He's got it now.
You got it.
He's got it.
We already had this space here. This area, dining area. So we already have existing. And this is the space I'm going to expand. This is the door would be 44 inches wide because people can access very easy, more than standard size. So my buffet comes this side because more wider here, and I'm going to add 8 more tables. That means we can join the table, square 8 more tables, and this is my waiters area that my server can stand here. You know? So this is pretty simple, and this area is 2,000 square foot, and this is going to be wall, soundproof wall. So we're going to do soundproof. That means people can hear this side to other side, and this is already there. So 2 rooms is there already. So we are going to demolish, making empty space. So pretty much open this area.
The space has been vacant, by the way, since September of last
It's already
year.
vacant.
Okay.
Then other thing I would like to show you if you have any question. This is I roughly make it, drawing. This is I already submitted with application. I make a little mistake here. This total 48 parking spot is there. 45 regular and 3 handicap. So I just asked them what time how many parking spots would be empty. So Mondays Swad restaurant closed now because we are family run business. So definitely everybody needs safe day off. So my staff also has a same way. And the Tuesday to Sunday we open. So this is the time frame. Our 11 o'clock we start. 11:30 actually the business start. And you can see the La Rosita, they have all the time 4, 5, 6. I can write down in maximum 6 they have. And a regular space all the time would be 23. The spa restaurant occupied by employee. This 2 car we have. Me and one of my friends had they ride the bike, but we have 7, 8 employees, but most of them get the ride.
Okay.
So that's the reason we just have a 2 car, sometimes 3, hardly. But 3 means sometimes 4 because after 5 o'clock, after 6 o'clock, the pet clinic they close 6
Yep.
o'clock.
Mhm.
So the very competitive times we have. So this is the way every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and other days. So how many space we have empty in after Swad around 40, something like that. And then the good thing is that the pet clinic has a more space, more parking lot that area, and behind the dumpster area. So that's the pet clinic. Sunday they close. Sunday we are busy for the lunch time.
Mhm.
Lunch buffet special. On Sunday pretty much busy. And that day we get a plenty parking spot. And Saturday they open until 1 o'clock. So after 1 we meet. Okay, fine. So that's I clearly like the parking spot. How many spots available? We just go in 1 week to see how many parking spots we have available. That's what easy for everybody understand.
Well, why don't we do this? Let's close the public hearing session and move on to the pre-hearing conference on the request. You guys want to stay there for us? And Sonia?
It's a zoning permit for an expansion of use. Parking is the major issue here. So with 48 stalls on site, a 96-seat restaurant requires 32 stalls. So there are 17 stalls remaining that would need to be shared between the rest of the tenants in the building, including the market and the pet clinic. And the heaviest demanded hours are Tuesday through Saturday during the lunch hour.
Saturday, Larusita, they open until 9, but we, the pet clinic side, that's almost, they close at 1 o'clock. So pretty Saturday, normally our lunch buffet starting 12:30 to 3 o'clock, pretty busy hour. That time so we get the parking spot, pretty much. Okay.
Thank you. Commission members? Questions? Mr. Kuzma?
So the parking numbers that you have here, these are kind of based on some observations?
Yeah.
The things, and since you own the entire building?
Yes.
I'm going to assume that you talked with the pet clinic and the market about this potential expansion, so they understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so.
Okay.
Yeah. They like his food and they welcome him. They're very pleased with him in his expansion idea.
Two questions.
And then the space in the back, it would be, you probably during the lunch hour, you may not need that space. This is
Well,
more,
that's the
yeah, I mean,
thing.
you could, but it probably is more suited for maybe, let's say, evening dinner meetings or
Exactly. That's the reason I
holiday parties.
Before I opened the restaurant, I was thinking about that, but finally we decided no, just take a little small.
Sure.
Monona is not big space,
Mhm.
not like a west side of Madison, not some other part of the Madison. So I decided to have a small restaurant to start from. So now and then, most of people said they call us, and they every month they call us, and what day is normal day, get more privacy, and they decide to tell them. So and then I decide, I talked to Joanne regarding the make half of them in the backside.
Sure.
And that is a way people can, at the dinner time, if they want to come, meeting, and there's something, family get together, then the thing is that we have to keep door open because of,
Oh, sure.
So the space, the adjoining space is 2,000 square feet. Right?
Yes.
What will happen to the remaining 1,000 square feet?
At this point, I have no idea.
Because if there's a future parking needs for that space.
Depends on what kind of use. Obviously, it will not be a restaurant.
Yeah, I would think
Go ahead.
be limited to what sort of business can go in there.
It's pretty space.
Because you're maxing out your parking capacity, I think, with this addition, which I think I'm happy to hear things are going so well, and I see reviews about your restaurant, and they're all very great. And, but I think that's a good point. Is you are limited as what that next business or use can be.
1,000 square feet's going to cater to an awfully small business anyways.
It'll be a very small business, obviously,
Yeah,
with that much
parking
footage.
demand.
Right.
Great. I think it's wonderful. I frequent the restaurant. It's wonderful. It's nice to have on Monona Drive. good food. If your food wasn't any good, you wouldn't have this problem.
No, because my field is restaurant hotel management, so I know how to manage the restaurant field. So the thing is that, and we are the specialty Indian food, so that's the thing that we pretty much focus my customer as a guest, as my regular guest, not like a drive-through way, people treating like that. Fine dining.
I think it's been a real good addition to Monona Drive.
Commission members, any other feedback on the pre-hearing conference?
I think it's very pleased to hear that the restaurant wants to expand and that it's been successful. I think parking is an issue, but I think that given the various uses and everything, I suspect we can accommodate it.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. We can go back now to 5E, review of comprehensive plan maps. Sonia.
Okay, so I think there may be 14 total comprehensive plan maps. And we already took a look at the existing land use map, the future land use map, and the zoning map. And there's some minor revisions being done to that before they're finalized. And these are the remaining maps in the set. So the only one that you've had a look at is the bike routes map. And we did do some revisions to that, and I think it makes a lot more sense now. So the rest are just for your review if you have any comments on them and their functionality. Otherwise, this is the last item that will come before you all for the comprehensive plan before the final draft will be reviewed and published.
The only comment I think I had was on the parks map. The font in the water is extremely hard to read for me. So we should do something with some font that makes it legible. And I guess the Monona regional map, I mean, we're outlined in a color, but maybe it could be a little more intense, just so we pop out of the page. Any other comments from commission members? Thank you, Sonia. Whoever, and Brad. Yes. Thanks, Brad. Yes, sir. Mr. Stein.
The city center map, I think the opacity, I think just going to an opaque color would help that read a little better. Pretty simple. Because the little inset map actually reads better to me than the blow-up. On the city facility map and the parks, it's the same comment. On where Frostwoods, on the corner of Frostwoods and Bridge, that area, there's that green space, and I know there's that city property there. It's empty. See that green spot that's surrounded by residential?
I think it's on the water.
No.
In the triangle?
Between Ridgewood Avenue.
Ridgewood and Bridge?
Yeah, because that's actually not a thoroughfare. It's a dead end. It doesn't come all the way through. So the street...
Talking about that, right?
The street right here is not a street.
The limits of that green square go all the way up to Bridge Road, though? Or would it be an island like that?
I think there is a strip up to Bridge Road.
That street was supposed to go through, but it dead ends.
Right.
No, but he's saying like, doesn't this access Bridge Road?
That was completely landlocked.
Really?
By houses on all sides.
I think it should just be
This street.
this whole.
Oh. So my idea of a 5-story apartment building there is
there.
that they won't go.
How to go there?
They're going to drive under the house. It's in the way.
It's a minor thing, but
It can work.
Nothing can't
can
be
work.
resolved.
So, Commissioner Stein, you're saying that we should just add the connection there that
I just think the boundaries of the green space are
wrong.
Okay.
Catching that?
You're saying
And that was on the Parks map as well.
There's a strip up to.
Same problem on the Parks map?
Yep.
Up to Frost Woods.
I think that was all that I had.
All right. Any others?
And the wetlands map, it's on that one too.
All right. Seeing that there's no other comments on that.
I just.
Oh, Mr. Kugel,
Just under
sorry.
the city facilities map, there's little legends that show where our wells are. Is a well on West Broadway outside our city limits, or does the city limits need to be drawn around that? It's the city facilities map. It's the, our well, we have a well out by Southtown.
I believe what's happening there is the icon is just overlapping
Oh.
the thick black jurisdictional boundary.
Yeah, because it's right on, that's fine. I like the maps, they're nice. They're a great snapshot of what's going on in the city. And the redevelopment areas, now I know where they all are. I mean, it's nice to have, I'm going to keep these to refer to.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's no other comments, we will move on to 6E, review of revisions of Section 13-1-64 of the Monona Municipal Zoning Code. Historic conservation is drafted and recommended by the Landmarks Commission. Sonia.
So I also staffed the Landmarks Commission, and they've recently had a turnover of all of their membership. So the 5 people that had been on the commission since it began are no longer on it. We have 5 new members. So as part of that process, we kind of reviewed all the codes and sections of city documents that are applicable to them. And so one of the things that they started working on was this historic conservation ordinance. The current ordinance is very, very brief. It's one paragraph within the zoning code. And the process includes things like when there's an application for a zoning or occupancy permit for a landmark property, it triggers plan commission review. And then the plan commission looks at and determines what the effect on the property would be. And then if the plan commission deems it appropriate, they would refer the application to the city council. And if there was a landmark property that was threatened, then it would be the city council that would look at a possible preservation or acquisition strategy. So the changes to this code, there are 2 substantial ones. The first is that instead of just triggering review when there's a zoning or occupancy permit, it includes building or demolition permit. So theoretically, if the plan commission was reviewing if an addition was going to change the historic character of a house, that's something the plan commission would be able to review. But if the house was going to be demolished, it wouldn't trigger the review. So it would completely destroy the historic landmark versus just considering whether the addition was compatible with its characteristics, if that makes sense. So
It didn't to me.
No, it
So
didn't.
what is this? What are you saying?
So there were
They corrected this.
Yeah, so
that
what they did
problem
was
here.
added whenever there's a zoning, occupancy, building, or demolition permit involving a landmark property, that then triggers the review process.
Oh. Demolition wasn't included before?
Correct.
Couldn't add on to it, but he cleared.
So the second thing that was added was the inclusion of the Landmarks Commission in the review process. So one of the whereas clauses at the beginning of this explains that the Landmarks Commission is the responsible entity for designating landmarks, and they possess a certain expertise on the historic characteristics of these properties that would be of assistance to the Plan Commission in making their determination. So all it does is add the Landmarks Commission in, so when there's an application, it's referred to them. Oftentimes we would do that as a courtesy anyway. It wasn't required in the process, but this codifies it. So those were the 2 real changes. It doesn't change the authority of the city in any way with any landmark status. And then there's a lot of other language that was added that I think really just beefs it up, including the purpose and intent and the designation criteria for any future landmarks.
Okay. Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns?
So if I understand this now, that if there is a landmark property that's slated to be the building permit applied to it, then they would have to go through Landmarks Commission as well as Plan Commission?
Correct.
Is that consistent with other communities to make them go through both
Yes, it is.
commissions?
Yeah.
So, do we have a map that shows these?
Landmark properties?
Yeah, landmark properties, do we have that?
We do.
I'm not asking for now, but that would be something that'd be kind of nice to have too.
Yes.
Are there quite a few?
There are 25.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Are they mostly outside of,
Single-family homes?
are they mostly single-family homes? Or?
There are no commercial properties.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Dishes,
Except for Monona Motors.
Monona Motors is.
Monona Motors.
Yeah. Ernie's Trading Post. The Royal Airport is not a residential.
Right.
It's just a site.
Okay.
Roselawn Cemetery, the Native American burial mounds.
Okay.
And then a lot of single-family homes.
Okay. I think a couple have come to this plan commission before for remodeling or for building permit review.
So if there's no further discussion on that, move down to 7, report of staff and commission members. Sonia.
Could we have a motion on a recommendation to council?
For
On the ordinance?
For ordinance? Sure. Going back to 6E, is there a recommendation for approval of the proposed ordinance?
Move approval of said ordinance?
Or move recommending it? Okay, yep. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Sonia. Reports of staff and commission members, 7A. Sonia?
So no items for the next meeting right now, which is pretty close to the holidays, so likely that we'll cancel December 28th, and the next meeting will be January 11th. Some items that we're working on, I wanted to update you on the sign code. So I talked to Bill Cole, city attorney, about the Reed versus Gilbert issue, and he gave me his opinion. So he explains on the impact and extent of the Reed case is going to be litigated for many years through the courts. We would be waiting forever if we were waiting for all the case law to shake out. Also, some of our provisions of our code are contrary to Reed. If we're updating the sign code anyway, we should include amendments to conform to Reed as best we can now. As the issue works its way through the courts and decision impacts those amendments, we will amend to conform just as we do with all provisions. I certainly agree with the logic that we should wait to see how other communities deal with it so you don't have to pay the attorney to invent the wheel. However, keep things in mind. Until we amend our code, we have to follow it. If we follow it and get sued based on Reed, the cost of litigation would exceed those drafting costs. Also, every community is likely to approach the issue differently, so we could wait a year and end up looking for direction from 30 communities with 30 different approaches. The reality is each community is going to have to decide on its own where it wishes to draw the line between freedom of expression and sign enforcement, and also how close we are willing to walk to violating Reed. So
I guess it's kind of pay me now or pay me later. So,
Did he said move ahead with it?
Just say that
Yes.
instead
Yeah,
of writing
I-
all that.
yeah.
I thought you'd like to
He gets
hear
paid,
his
but
reasons.
gets paid by the
He
word.
gets paid to write the letter.
So I think the direction we're taking then is to have Bill work with us. Thank you. Anything else, Sonia?
The University Alliance project that we talked about in the planning budget process, that you all voted to approve a $10,000 budget item for the planning department, and that was related to the housing project that we were going to review with owner occupied versus renter occupied. So the council did approve all of that funding for this project, and that's moving forward. So right now the stage that it's in is between now and March. We're defining the scopes of the projects, and I have a draft that's being reviewed by our contact Jason Vargo with UW, and what's going to happen next is we'll review that with some faculty at UW that will give us feedback, and then we're going to have the faculty individual come in and speak to the planning commission so that you can all review the draft and help define the project, and then we'll move forward with courses in the spring.
Moving on to 7B, Plan Commission request for information.
I'm interested in the status of the triangle. I heard that it kind of went south. Has there been any changes to that?
Yeah, I don't think we've had an update at Plan Commission since we adopted the redevelopment plan. So we were working with a master developer, Ascendant Holdings, out of Milwaukee, and we were working with them for about 6 to 9 months, and plans were moving along just fine, really supportive of the project. They ran their financial numbers and found that the gap was too wide, so the work group felt that there were some things that could have been dealt with in the way that they were showing different parking levels and things that were adding a whole bunch of costs. So the gap was pretty large, but the real issue was on top of that was the profit that they were expecting to get. So it was just way too large to be feasible for Ascendant. So we reported that back to the CDA, who's been getting most of the updates on this, and they were still very positive moving forward with the strategy of getting individual site developers instead of a master plan developer. So we're continuing to work with individual site developers, where we have a residential developer that's working on one portion of the site, working on getting the hotel and a couple of those pieces in a phase 1 so that we can then catalyze the rest of the development. So we have a meeting tomorrow with someone, and it's progressing. CDA is very positive about it, and that's where we are at the general level.
So who's doing the general development of it?
Yeah, we're continuing to work with consultant Vanderwall and Associates, who's drafted a concept master plan that we'll use to help guide the individual site developers, and that'll probably get changed as we go through a little bit, but for the most part, the city's doing that.
Now we have a lone guest tonight. For those of you that don't know the new city administrator.
Oh, really? Sure, welcome.
Welcome. And after we're done, I encourage you to introduce yourself and welcome her. She had the guts to come back after the first week, so we're very happy for that. Nothing else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
I do have a question, and honestly, I don't know if this is the forum to ask this, but it keeps coming back, and the same things get brought up regarding the apartment community. How is that brought to a head within our process?
I don't know if it's appropriate for us at this part of the meeting to discuss it.
All right.
Because the applicant's not here.
Okay.
Okay. But we could get clarification at some point. And, okay, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Anything else?
So no.
Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.